We've been watching a lot of horror on the channel recently, and they're all fake, right? Right? I hope so, at least. But one thing that is not fake is people dying in caves. It's a real thing. To be honest with you, I don't know why anyone goes in caves at all, but they have proven time and time again to be incredibly dangerous. And typically, in those cave deaths, they drag on because people just get stuck and eventually they die from being in the same position for too long without any food or water or oxygen. And today, we're checking out the most painful cave deaths of all time.
Mossdale Cave incident. It was June 24th, 1967, and 10 cavers were about to enter Mossdale Cavern to help clear some of the deeper passages and map them out. The 2 leaders of the group had already explored this cave before, which reassured everyone else. This particular cavern was known for its tight spaces and the very few areas where a person could fully stand. After a few hours inside, 4 of the cavers realized how difficult the cave actually was and decided to return to the surface.
What is even the point of doing it at that point? Are they just having fun? Or is there buried treasure down there? Maybe do cavers find more joy in conquering like harder caves? Is that what it is? Because this one is specifically known to have essentially no room to get through it. And there's almost nowhere to stand either. The whole time you're just crawling and crawling and crawling.
They noticed a cloudy sky, but nothing seemed out of the ordinary. The remaining cavers continued their descent until they reached the Far Marathon Passage, which measured only 18 inches by 12 inches, with a small stream of water flowing along the bottom. God. Everything seemed to be going well, and the group on the surface soon noticed that it had started raining, so they took cover. Initially, the rain did not seem concerning, but the cavers inside began to notice rising water levels.
Look, I don't know that much about caving. I don't know much about a lot of things. But one thing I do have a little bit of is intuition. And I can see that coming from a mile away. I don't even think I've had a nightmare as bad as this. Imagine you're deep in a cave, you're crawling, and water starts to rise. I would literally rather have the devil touch me than go through this experience. This sounds awful.
Water became alarmingly high. They decided to end the day's work and head back, even though they were still 3 hours from the entrance. Meanwhile, the surface group spotted something terrifying. A lake of water had formed around the cave's entrance. The cavers inside had no idea how much water was about to flood the cave. The surface group ran to get help, while the cavers frantically tried to reach higher chambers. However, the water continued to rise, pressing toward their faces. Rescuers and hundreds of volunteers worked tirelessly, pumping water out of the cave and pumping oxygen inside, hoping that the cavers had found a safe chamber. Unfortunately, every one of the cavers drowned. Oh my god. Why am I watching this? Seriously, what am I doing? I think this channel has taken such a turn. When I started the channel, I was watching like Dragon Ball stuff, Minecraft stuff, you know, fun and games. We were all having fun and games. And it's taken a turn into horror videos, worst punishment videos, the worst cave deaths. Why? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Shaft sinkhole tragedy. It was May 28, 1973, and a group of 9 diving experts had planned a dive at Mount Gambir's shaft sinkhole. This sinkhole had a unique feature. There was only a tiny opening leading to a cave with a lake 20 feet below. From this opening, a beam of light went down into the cave and onto the lake, which was extremely helpful for the divers' orientation. This beam was visible throughout most of the cave, unless divers ventured too deep into one of the 2 side branches.
Can you guys guess what they're gonna do? Take a guess what they're gonna do. Is it A, play patty cake, who's that man, only 10 feet underwater? Or is it B, are they gonna go all the way to the extremely bottom, the depths of the sinkhole where there's no more light and get stuck and disoriented and not know where they are, then they're gonna drown? I really hope it's A.
Initially agreed that they would stay within a 200-foot maximum depth range so they could remain in the main chamber and still see the guiding light. This was their only plan. On the second day, however, 4 divers planned to go to the western section of the cave, aiming for a depth of 250 feet, which would have been a new record. This was deeper than initially intended and posed a significant risk because in 1973, divers were still using regular air cylinders rather than mixed gas tanks. For this reason, they had to be more cautious as they went downwards because nitrogen narcosis might have settled in. As they went down, the increasing pressure would have pushed the nitrogen into the bloodstream, producing a state of consciousness that is similar to when people are drunk. Keep in mind that these divers were not very experienced in cave diving. They were more accustomed to standard open water scuba diving. This This added even more risk to their plan. They started going downwards into the western section of the cave, and one experienced diver noticed that nitrogen narcosis was kicking in, so he immediately went back out. Several of them followed him and went back to the surface as well, but 4 of them kept going, determined to set the record and get a quick look before resurfacing. After a minute or so, the group at the surface became concerned, realizing the 4 divers would soon exhaust their air supply. A few returned to the cave to find them, and they discovered a flashlight and a camera on the bottom.
What were they thinking? They're scuba divers. They're not cavers. They're not experienced in cave diving, yet they're trying to break a world record? What are we doing? That's like me trying to beat the world record for most hamburgers eaten in 30 minutes. Like, yes, I eat hamburgers, but very casually, not competitively. And if I try to do it competitively, my stomach would probably explode. I have to learn how to eat very fast and learn how to expand my stomach before just full sending it.
No trace of the divers. There was a problem that we haven't yet mentioned: silt. The movements of the 4 divers stirred up the long settled silt into a sand cloud that would take a lot of time to settle back. This reduced visibility to less than an arm's length, removing any hope for orientation for the underwater divers. Without being able to see anything, oxygen running dangerously low, and nitrogen narcosis kicking in, the 4 divers drowned.
I don't know what's worse, like watching these videos and being tremendously sad, or watching the horror videos and being tremendously scared. I gotta start watching more fun videos on the channel. What do we say to that? I mean, come on. Anyway, next up we have Jacob's Well tragedy on November 23rd.
November 23rd, 1983, and 2 students from Texas State University named Richard and Clark are about to enter Jacob's Well, an underwater hole that leads to an underwater cave. This hole seems relatively shallow, around 25 feet, and many people try to touch the bottom and then come up. However, this is just a deceiving appearance because it actually leads to another underwater cave with 3 chambers. The first 2 are relatively open and easy to get through, but the third one has a really small squeeze to get into it. If you manage to squeeze through, you'll enter a room that is 10 feet tall, and you'll see a really small hole at the farthest edge, too small to pass through.
10 feet tall still isn't really that big when you're swimming. Not that I'm a swimming expert, but I have scuba dived before, and when you're underwater, you kind of just like naturally float around, whether you're going up, whether you're going down. You have to like continuously flap your wings. And my point is, if it's only 10 feet, like you could easily, I feel like, bang your head, or like bang your shoulder, or bang something, or bang your mom. I'm sorry. You get my point, though.
This small tunnel was just 2 feet in diameter, and 2 years prior, 2 people died in it because after they managed to get through, a rock slide filled with gravel blocked them inside. Now, getting back to our 2 students,
they're not going to try it.
In normal diving, but not in cave diving, and they were trying to get their
certification
in open water diving. Their instructor, Don, was an incredibly skilled and experienced diver, and he was the one who removed the 2 bodies we just talked about. He used to constantly warn everybody to stay away from Jacob's Well since it's deadly, and he even tried to cover up the small hole that leads to the 4th chamber with some cement. But other divers reopened it and left a message that said, "You can't keep us out."
Again, like, I feel bad for anyone who dies. You know, it's sad. It's a tragedy. But at this point, they're just asking for it. They're asking for it. Like, how bad can you feel for somebody who does something like that?
They went into Jacob's Well and reached the 3rd chamber where the small hole was located. Richard removed his tank to get through the hole and started going in while holding his
Dude.
When Clark removed his own oxygen tank and tried to get in, he saw Richard's face and noticed Richard didn't have the tank with him anymore and was suffocating. Clark quickly reached for the regulator and gave it to him, letting him breathe again. They started passing the regulator back and forth as they made their way out, and somehow they managed to get through the tight squeeze of the 3rd chamber. They then began making their way toward the exit until a terrifying sound caught their attention, a clank from their oxygen tank.
What?
Not only did this mean they'd hit a wall with the tank, so they were going the wrong direction, but it also meant the tank was almost empty. They realized they'd run into the false chimney in the 1st chamber, a tunnel that looks like it leads to the surface, but is actually a dead end. Clark managed to swim back to the surface and gasped for air after covering an incredible 75 feet in a single breath. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for Richard, who remained behind and drowned. When Clark called the police for assistance, Don, the instructor himself, showed up.
I'm just trying to imagine, like, what that must feel like as a friend. Oh man, I feel so bad. Like, imagine you and your best friend go on a dive and you have to leave, you know, you go through what they went through, and you have to make that decision to leave him behind. Oh my God, that is just awful. Just so so awful.
It's August 18th, 2005, and a group of 5 friends decided to venture into the Gollum Cave, also called the Cave of Death, because of how dangerous it was.
Awesome. Exactly my point. Awesome. You know, it's like the more people that die somewhere, the more other people want to go explore it. Like, the only way that makes sense is if you think that you're better than everyone else at caving, you know? Because you're assuming like, oh, they died, but they don't know what I know. They ain't me. The warning signs couldn't be more prevalent, yet people still decide to do this stuff. It's truly remarkable.
They reached the entrance at 3 a.m., and one of the friends decided to wait for the others outside.
3 a.m.?
They encountered their first problem when actually trying to get in, as they had to crawl through a small pool of water. After that, there was a fork going left and right, and they chose left, which led them to another small pool of water. This seemingly innocent pool, however, actually led to another section of the cave through an underwater tunnel. The tunnel itself was really small, just 3 to 4 feet in diameter, and to get through it, you had to be completely submerged. This meant only one person at a time could go in, and they had to swim about 15 feet. One by one, they started plunging into the pool of water to reach the other side of the cave, and once they made it, they discovered a section with about 3 feet.
It seems like they didn't really have a plan, though. Like, when they got to the fork in the road of whether or not they go left or right, at least the way this guy's telling the story is like, they chose to go left, not like it was predetermined that they were going to go left. My point is, it seems like they don't know this cave at all, and this dude just randomly dove into the water in the cave and just swam until he found a pool of air, or a pocket of air. That's absurd. Nah, these people are crazy. I would never, no, like literally rather do anything else than that. Anything.
Perspective of the friend who stayed outside, there was no sound or light coming from inside the cave, and after a while he started to get worried. He went into the cave himself, but heard no noises and saw no lights. Not sure what to do, he first called some friends who had experience with caving, and then called the police. He couldn't have imagined what was happening inside. The 4 friends who went in probably realized that the 3 feet of airspace they'd reached had bad air, which is a term cavers use for air that doesn't have the normal balance of gases, meaning there's more carbon dioxide and less oxygen. This reduces your ability to think, move, and breathe properly, making the return swim through that narrow tunnel super risky. They tried to get back out one at a time, but the first person who went underwater was unable to find the exit hole before running out of breath. That happened because the increased carbon dioxide messed with her ability to hold her breath and think clearly. After 30 to 60 seconds, the second person went in and found the first one, and so on.
He must have got stuck. Yeah, they're literally just getting stuck.
The police arrived and tried to pump in oxygen and pump out water, while family and friends waited anxiously outside the cave. Unfortunately, it was all in vain. The bodies were later recovered, and the cave was eventually closed off with cement.
The worst part about all these stories is that they are true, like real stories. I'm pretty sure you can look all these up and find the evidence. I wouldn't recommend it, because I'm sure like their actual photos will pop up and stuff, but this was really sad. This was really, really sad. But if you guys enjoyed and want me to watch more, there actually are a ton of cave death videos. So by letting me know, you can do that by leaving a like. And also, if you're bored and want to watch another video, you can click on this one right here.